When the precogs declare a victim and a killer, their name is embedded in the grain of wood. Since each piece is unique, the shape and grain is unique. The shape and grain is impossible to forge.
I'm sure you all understand the legalistic drawback to pre-crime methodology.
Here we go again.
Look, I'm not with the ACLU on this, Jeff. But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will.
The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The precogs see the future, and they're never wrong.
But it's not the future if you stop it. Isn't that a fundamental paradox?
Yes, it is. You're talking about predetermination, which happens all the time. Why'd you catch that?
Because it was gonna fall.
You're certain?
Yeah.
But it didn't fall. You caught it. The fact that you prevented it from happening doesn't change the fact that it was going to happen.
You ever get any false positives? Someone intends to kill his boss or his wife, but they never go through with it. How do the precogs tell the difference?
Precogs don't see what you intend to do. Only what you will do.
Then why can't they see rapes, or assaults, or suicides?
Because of the nature of murder. There's nothing more destructive to the metaphysical fabric that binds us than the untimely murder of one human being by another.
Somehow I don't think that was Walt Whitman.
Hello everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to take a look back and reflect on the science fiction classic Minority Report. Released on June 21st, 2002, it stars Tom Cruise, Colin Farrell, Max van Syndow, Samantha Morton, and it was directed by master movie maker Steven Spielberg. Now the movie itself was a loose adaptation of the Philip K. Dick science fiction novel called The Minority Report, which was released in 1956. The story was being set in a distant future where 3 mutants have the ability to see future events before they happen. They are utilised into the pre-crime criminal policing system where their abilities are used to help prevent crimes before they happen. The culprits, once arrested, are put in a pre-paralytic status with their bodies being kept within the pre-crime division. And the movie follows this outline very closely by centering on John Anderton, who was the chief officer of pre-crime, which has operated for 6 years successfully, preventing future crimes before they are committed. Anderton was motivated to join the pre-crime division after his 6-year-old son named Sean was kidnapped and abducted whilst they were at a swimming pool, and to this day Sean still hasn't been found. Working with director LeVar Burgess, pre-crime stands on the verge of being fully utilised into society. Now things change when Justice Agent Danny Whitwer is assigned to investigate the pre-crime division for review. Despite agreeing in principle with the pre-crime ideals, Whitwer is sceptical of the potential human flaws within the program. Whilst carrying out daily checks, Anderton is shocked to learn that he is destined to murder a man named Leo Crow, despite never hearing of him. Knowing the fate of his arrest, Anderton breaks out of the pre-crime facility and as a fugitive goes to desperate measures to find out who Leo Crow is and why he would be destined to murder him. And when looking back on Minority Report, it remains a stunning, compelling science fiction story full of tension and action. But even more so, it is a thematical commentary of destiny, fate and purpose, and how having knowledge of your fate changes a person and the actions that they take to determine that particular fate. Now these themes have been covered successfully in movies prior to Minority Report, whether it was the likes of The Terminator, Total Recall or The Matrix. And like all of those movies, Minority Report works so well at delving into that complex subject matter underneath the surface of a more engaging mainstream narrative, which in this movie is of course being the on-the-run thriller where the hero flees, having to prove he's innocent of the accused murder. And the movie merges these elements so well, taking the time to let us to get to know Anderton, making us empathise instantly with him following the tragedy of his son's abduction, which I'm not sure still the movie actually resolves as to what actually happened, as to whether he is alive or whether he was killed. The movie keeps the notion of pre-crime very straightforward, never getting too heady in terms of the concepts as say what a Christopher Nolan movie would, so you do remain hooked to the story without getting confused. The aesthetic of the future I think still holds up today as a believable construct. The movie itself is largely cloaked in its very faded, shiny blue grey contrast, which is very beautiful to look at within the cinematography. And to be honest, the movie isn't quite the bleak cyberpunk science fiction noir that it certainly promoted itself to be when it was released. It's not quite in the same vein as Blade Runner, but that's largely due to the stronger storytelling sensibilities and pacing, of which Spielberg typically inserts much more emotional weight and gravitas to the characters and the story. And I think in terms of those elements, this is why I believe Minority Report remains a much more impactful and overall superior movie to both the likes of Total Recall and Blade Runner. Ironically, all three films were based on novels by Philip K. Dick, and yes, I do believe that Minority Report is the best of the bunch. It's helped by a very strong central lead performance from Tom Cruise, completely solid and believable as Anderton, once more proving his ability as an actor to be able to reliably carry this type of movie. And here I do believe it is much more of a character performance than an action one than what we normally associate with Tom Cruise currently with all of the Mission Impossible movies. Max von Sydow is also very good as Lamar Burgess, and I think in terms of Colin Farrell as Whitwer, I think he's fine. There's nothing particularly special in terms of his performance, and I think any decent actor could have played this role, but he's fine overall in terms of this character. We once more have to mention the legendary John Williams and his musical score, which once more contributes greatly. I love all of the operatic tones that he applies when we get the future visions, especially when we're concerning and lively. Proves to be very integral as we go towards the end of the story. And I also note out especially an emotional scene where we see Agatha, one of the precogs, telling John of an alternate reality where his son Sean is growing up, going to high school and meeting a girl and potentially starting a family. And this is a prime example of how Minority Report carries much more of an emotional weight than what I would say Blade Runner does. It's a great scene, especially driven by Samantha Morton, who plays Agatha. Now, I think if there's one flaw throughout the film, it's probably the climax of the story. Whilst perfectly sound, it doesn't carry a sense of momentum or impact that I think it should have done. It's much more of a quieter resolution, but some may find it falls just a bit flat, and I think it could have had a much more of a powerful conclusion that could have been reached throughout the story. So when we go on to the movie's overall release, and it was a sound box office success, grossing over $358.4 million from a $102 million budget. It gained largely positive reviews and critical reception for its story and complex themes. The film's hype was generated a lot from being the first collaboration between Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise, who were two of the biggest names within the industry at the time of its release. And the success of Minority Report continued to consolidate Tom Cruise's position as perhaps the biggest movie star within the industry, continuing a long stream of standalone box office successes. Steven Spielberg also bounced back commercially after the much misdirected box office failure of Artificial Intelligence, and both individuals would go on to collaborate once more to an even bigger success shortly after with The War of the Worlds in 2005. And looking back on Minority Report, it still remains for me an accomplished science fiction movie, a real example of how you mix together a much more mainstream accessible story with more deeper complex themes and still make it a rewatchable experience. Still a great movie just over 20 years post its release. A movie that I think you wouldn't see now released much more in cinemas. Something like this would probably go straight to streaming, which is such a shame, but I do think it's a reminder of how good cinema used to be back then, where you could have more intelligent science fiction reach box office success within a mainstream audience. And that's for me why I still believe that Minority Report is a truly great movie many years after its overall release. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of Minority Report. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any further movies or television series or any other topics within the entertainment and pop culture scene that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know in the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on those topics within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.